In 1944, they fooled Hitler himself and the entire Nazi war machine. Entire divisions were diverted, bombs wasted and lives lost, all because of shadows. These weren't fighter pilots or bomber crews. They were artists, painters, stage designers, men armed with brushes, ropes and speakers, who built an army of phantoms so convincing even the Führer believed in it. This is the story of the Ghost Army, perhaps the most extraordinary deception in military history. And the strangest part, for decades after the war, no one even knew they had existed. In war, the skies are supposed to tell the truth. A plane is either there, or it isn't. A squadron is either real, or it's a trick of the imagination. But what if I told you there was once an air force made not of steel and fire, but of canvas, paint and sound? A ghost squadron so convincing it changed the course of battles, and yet it never actually existed. This is the story of the men who fought with shadows and the enemies who never saw through the illusion. The idea of deception in war wasn't new. Even in the First World War, both sides experimented with camouflage, fake trenches and decoy artillery. But by the 1940s, as the world was plunged into its second global conflict, deception became something else entirely. The Germans themselves had tried it, wooden planes on wooden runways. But when the British discovered them, they didn't bomb the decoys. Instead, they dropped a single wooden bomb, just to make a point. The Allies understood something critical. Deception wasn't just about tricking machines. It was about tricking people, about forcing an enemy commander to see what wasn't there, and then to act on it. And so the Ghost Squadron was born. At first, it was crude, inflatable planes, flat wooden silhouettes, fake hangars. But soon it became an art. Specialists designed them with an eye for detail. Canvas fighters glistened with paint to mimic reflections of sunlight. Dummy bombers carried fake exhaust stains on their wings. Tire tracks were carved into dirt to suggest constant activity. The deception units became masters of performance. Loudspeakers roared with the sounds of ground crews at work. Engines that didn't exist thundered across open fields. At night, clever light tricks created the illusion of takeoffs and landings. From 1,000 feet above, it was real. To an enemy intelligence officer squinting at reconnaissance photos, it was undeniable. But the truth, 2 men could pick up one of these aircraft and walk it across a field. One officer later wrote, "We fought battles of the imagination. If the Germans believed in us, then we had already won." And the Germans did believe. Reconnaissance pilots reported entire squadrons that were nothing but air-filled rubber. Luftwaffe bombers wasted fuel and lives striking empty fields. Commanders diverted troops to counter forces that weren't there. The illusionists of war had turned absence into a weapon. Nowhere was this more important than in 1944, during the months leading to D-Day. Operation Fortitude wasn't just a military plan. It was a masterpiece of deception. The Allies needed to convince Hitler that the invasion of France would happen at Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. And so the Ghost Squadron expanded. Inflatable fighters filled English fields. Fake air bases crackled with radio chatter. Even General George Patton was stationed with the Phantom Army, adding credibility. To German spies, it looked unquestionable. Patton, the Allies' most aggressive general, commanding a vast force across the Channel from Calais. They reported what they saw, and Hitler believed them. So when the Allies stormed Normandy, German divisions sat waiting for an invasion that would never come. It's not an exaggeration to say that without these illusions, D-Day may have failed. But who were these illusionists? Not hardened soldiers, but artists, set designers, billboard painters and sound engineers. Men who once worked on Broadway stages and Hollywood backlots, now asked to build an army of shadows. They called themselves the Ghost Army. They joked, they painted, they built under fire. But it was no game. If German forces discovered the trick, these men were vulnerable. An inflatable tank doesn't stop bullets. A rubber fighter plane doesn't lift you out of danger. One veteran recalled, "We had nothing but our wits. If they saw through the illusion, we were dead men." And yet, time and again, the Germans fell for it. By some estimates, tens of thousands of lives were saved because of the Ghost Army's diversions. Soldiers who never knew they were being protected by phantoms. Civilians who never knew their towns were spared because enemy bombs fell on empty runways. But when the war ended, so too did the recognition. Their work remained classified for decades, hidden even from their families. The illusionists of war disappeared into civilian life, their victories silent. Only when documents were declassified years later did the world learn the truth. That some of the most decisive victories in aviation were not won by firepower, but by imagination. There's a deeper lesson here. Why did it work? Why did some of the sharpest military minds of the 20th century fall for shadows? Because in war, fear and pressure bend perception. A commander doesn't have the luxury of doubting every photograph, questioning every report. And so they believed. They believed in squadrons that didn't exist. They believed in strength that was never there. The Ghost Squadron may have vanished after 1945, but its spirit lived on. During the Cold War, both NATO and the Soviets relied heavily on deception. Inflatable missiles, dummy airfields, fake radar signals. In the Gulf War of 1991, coalition forces used inflatable tanks to mislead Iraqi intelligence. Even today, reports surface of decoy systems in modern conflicts. The lesson of the Ghost Army endures. Sometimes what isn't there is more powerful than what is. So when you look back at history, don't just count the planes or the bombs or the battles. Remember the men with paintbrushes and ropes who tricked entire armies with nothing but imagination. The Ghost Squadron never flew a mission. It never dropped a bomb. And yet, it may have won battles no one even knew were being fought. Because war is not only a clash of weapons, it is a contest of minds, and sometimes the greatest victories belong to shadows.